M1 Pro and M1 Max, Apple did what? Hey, and welcome back to my channel. I'm Daniel, and let's talk about the new MacBook Pros. We got a 14-inch and a 16-inch version. 2 days ago there was the Apple event. Basically it's the MacBook event, because at the beginning they just talked a little bit about music. So for example, there is a new voice plan that you can use for Apple Music for $4.99 in the month. Then we have new colors for the HomePod Mini, which now starts with $99. And then we got the new redesigned 3rd generation of the AirPods. They have now spatial audio, they have sweat and water resistant, and they have adaptive EQ. Because the ear from every person is different. That means when you put those universal headphones in, the sound that you hear is different from what I hear. We can now calibrate the AirPods so that we can listen to the sound how the artist originally intended it to be. You got 6 hours of battery life, and 5 minutes charging will give you another hour of listening. They are selling now for $179. After this, they were talking straight about the MacBook Pros. First about the new chips. There's 2 new chips. There's the M1 Pro and the M1 Max. What exactly that means, we'll talk about this in a second. But let's go over the design changes of the MacBook Pro, because this is what I think will make a lot of creators and also video editors happy, because they are actually listening to their customers and they revised a lot of the decisions that they made from the last 3 years. So number one, there's no touch bar anymore. They brought back a new standard sized keyboard. They took a Magic Keyboard with clicking sound and brought it back into the MacBook Pro. You also get a fingerprint sensor, and they brought back MagSafe. Yes, you can now charge via MagSafe 3, or you can still use USB-C Thunderbolt 4 to charge. Let's talk about connectivity, because now you got 3 Thunderbolt 4 connections, 1 full-sized HDMI, an SD card slot. Yes, SD card, that's I don't even know why they get rid of this in the first place. That just makes no sense. Yeah, we want to make money by hour. And you have a headphone jack with advanced support for high fidelity headphones. What does it mean? High fidelity is basically just high quality headphones. Okay, let's talk about the display, because I guess you already saw it. There is a notch. And I first thought that this is a notch, same like on the iPhone, so that we have Face ID, but no, we don't. This is just a webcam, a 1080p webcam with an aperture of 2. That's an improvement over the past, but I don't know why there's a notch. But anyway, you got 3.5 millimeters of border all around, which makes this a very, very thin border. For example, my Dell XPS 15 has 4.7, and I thought this was already very small. But the more important thing is that you have a contrast ratio of 1 million to 1 billion colors. You can view HDR content, edit HDR content on that screen. I think this is, especially for us content creators, filmmakers, a very good pro. You don't need an external XDR display so that you can work with that. Okay, let's talk about the chips. We have the M1 Pro and we have the M1 Max that we got today. The M1 had 16 billion transistors. The M1 Pro has 33.7 billion transistors, and the M1 Max has 57 billion transistors. The biggest difference are the GPU components. You get up to 32 cores of GPUs on the M1 Max and 16 cores on the M1 Pro. Both of them have 10 dedicated CPUs, 8 high performance cores and 2 high efficiency cores. The M1 Pro has 32 gigabytes of unified memory, and M1 Max has up to 64 gigabytes of unified memory. And this is one of the reasons why those Apple silicons are such a leap forward. They build now everything on one package. So for example, in the past here with my Intel and my Nvidia graphics, those are 2 different packages. There's my Intel processor, they have their own RAM, and then there is my GPU, that has their own RAM, so the stuff has to be copied over back and forward, back and forth. So then we have this new 5 nanometer technology. Everything is smaller. Everything that you build smaller needs less power. This is why they are so power efficient. But then the third reason why this whole Apple silicon is such a leap forward into the future, and I don't see a lot of people talking about this, and I got this from Cold Fusion, another YouTuber from Australia, and I will link the video up here where he talks about the difference between ARM-based and x86 processors, and that actually opened my eyes. But to just give a recap, the ARM-based processors are usually built inside of devices where you want to save as much power. This is why all the smartphones usually have an ARM-based chip, and all the iPhones, they had ARM-based chip. And actually, did you know that when Apple introduced the iPhone, they were asking Intel if they want to build ARM-based processors for the iPhone? iPhone. And Intel said no. This is the reason why Apple started making their own chip and learning more and more about the chips to now building this into their Apple silicon. Intel could have done this, but they didn't saw a future for the iPhone or for the market. The biggest difference between x86 and the ARM-based technology is the code that you need to address the CPU. Because every line of code that you compile on top has to use this addressing code and goes on top. Do you understand what I mean? I will give you an example. If I have Photoshop now here on my x86 laptop, let's assume it takes 3 GB of storage on my hard drive. The same program compiled for an ARM-based system is only 300 MB. Why is that? This is because of the fundament, the addressing code for an ARM technology is less code than for an x86. I think for us as video editors, as creators, this kind of package in a laptop like the Macbook Pro is amazing for editing, because what they claim is that we can now edit 8K ProRes material color graded in real life on the battery. We also got some media engine inside of the CPU packages. It has a hardware acceleration for H.264 codecs, HEVC codecs, ProRes and ProRes RAW. So the M1 Max has 2 video encoders, while the M1 Pro only has 1 video encoder engine and has 2 ProRes encoders, decoders, while the M1 Pro just has 1. So this was my fast look at the new MacBook Pros, 14-inch and 16-inch. We are now seeing a change in the industry again. For me, this is as big of a difference as when they introduced the iPhone the first time, 2007, with the multi-touch screen. This was a revolutionized technology, other people copied it, and I think we will have the same here happening too. I think in the future we will have one package CPU, GPU, because it just makes more sense. I hope that the competition is jumping on the train, because that will mean that we will have competition. This is always good for us, because that means then the prices can be lower and the competition knows now in which direction we have to go. If you like this video, hit like, subscribe, ding a ding on the bang bang gong. I'm Daniel, and we see us in the next video. Bye.